Hello everyone, John AG here. Welcome back to my channel, Aurex. If you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel. In this channel, you will find the real information, the real market updates that everyone cannot tell you. So please subscribe to this channel, and I love you, all of my subscribers, for your relentless support. And please, I am asking you to watch this video till the very end, because YouTube will not push my videos to more people unless you stay with me right here, right now. What we are about to discuss today is too important to be buried by an algorithm. Today is Sunday, May 31st, 2026, and I need you to listen to me very carefully because what is happening in the world right at this exact second is fundamentally, dangerously misunderstood by 99% of the global population. Right now, if you turn on the television, if you open your news feed, or if you listen to the talking heads on the major financial networks, you are being force-fed a daily, concentrated diet of pure, unadulterated fear. You are being told that the world is fracturing, that the economy is entirely broken, and that you are powerless against the tides of geopolitical chaos. And let me be absolutely clear with you. I am not going to sit in this chair and insult your intelligence by telling you that the fear is entirely unjustified. The global economic outlook has, in many measurable ways, severely deteriorated. We are staring down the barrel of a global economy that is barely managing to hold on to a fractured, uneven growth rate, while the cost of simply staying alive seems to multiply by the month. Look at the brutal reality of our current geopolitics. The major maritime choke points of the world, from the Strait of Hormuz to the vital shipping lanes of the South China Sea, remain heavily restricted, militarized, and volatile. Maritime insurance premiums have skyrocketed to levels we have not seen since the major conflicts of the 20th century. Oil has been violently fluctuating, deeply impacting every single derivative product on Earth. This isn't just a number flashing green or red on a proprietary trading terminal in New York or London. This is a brutal, regressive tax on human existence. It is a direct tax on the diesel fuel that brings the bread and vegetables to your local supermarket. It is a tax on the electricity that keeps your lights on and your business running. It is an energy supply shock that is currently sending devastating ripples of pain through the working class and the middle class of every single nation on Earth. Right here at home, sitting in Alberton, South Africa, we are feeling the sharp, unforgiving bite of this reality. Our central bank, the South African Reserve Bank, is trapped in the exact same nightmare as the Federal Reserve in the United States and the European Central Bank in Frankfurt. They are holding interest rates higher for longer because the inflation we are fighting is incredibly sticky. And here is the first secret the mainstream media refuses to explain to you. This inflation is not driven by reckless consumer spending. It is not because everyday people have too much money. It is driven by shattered global supply chains, weaponized energy markets, and outright geopolitical warfare. I know you feel it. I know you sit at your kitchen table late at night, staring at your budget, looking at the numbers, and wondering why you are working harder, longer, and more efficiently than you ever have in your entire life, only to feel like you are slipping further and further backward into the dark. I see the comments you leave on my videos, I read your emails, I hear the deep, quiet exhaustion in your voices. The financial elite sitting in their boardrooms call it macroeconomic volatility. I call it the deliberate erosion of the human spirit. The entire operating system of the global economy, exactly as it was built in the late 20th century, is systematically breaking down in front of our very eyes. The era of hyper-globalization, the era where Western nations outsource their vital industrial security for the sake of cheap consumer goods, is dead and buried. What if I told you that the geopolitical chaos, the supply chain breakdowns, and the inflation crushing your wallet are actually the painful birth pangs of the greatest wealth creation event in human history? What if the agonizing pain we are experiencing right now as a society is not the terminal symptom of a dying world, but the brutal, necessary labor of a profound global rebirth? There is a multi-trillion-dollar shift happening right beneath your feet while you are distracted by political theater, and if you miss this window, you will be left behind for a generation. Today, I am going to expose the silver lining, the massive, historic, completely ignored silver lining that is laying the foundation for a new golden age. John stands up smoothly from his desk and walks over to the massive digital monitor. The screen transitions from a dark, foreboding map of global conflicts to a brilliantly illuminated glowing map showing massive, unprecedented capital inflows into highly specific, localized regions. The American Midwest, the industrial corridors of Mexico, the rising technological hubs of India, and newly optimized critical mineral processing centers in Africa. Let us deeply examine the architecture of global supply chains. For 40 long years, the world operated on a hyper-optimized philosophy known as just-in-time manufacturing. Massive multinational corporations built their products halfway across the world to save a fraction of a penny on labor costs, loading them onto massive container ships and sailing them across vulnerable, unprotected oceans just in time for you to purchase them. It was a masterpiece of financial engineering, and it was highly efficient on a spreadsheet. But it was incredibly, terrifyingly fragile. All it took was one global pandemic, one blocked canal, one regional war, and the entire house of cards collapsed. Welcome to 2026. We have officially, permanently transitioned from just in time to just in case. Yes, the violent fragmentation of the global order is causing immense short-term inflation. Building new supply chains from scratch is incredibly expensive. But look at what this friction is actually building in the long term. Governments, sovereign wealth funds, and the largest corporations on Earth are currently deploying hundreds of billions of dollars to reshore, nearshore, and friendshore their critical manufacturing capabilities. High-definition sweeping drone footage fills the screen. It shows the massive, awe-inspiring scale of modern industrial construction. Thousands of workers in hard hats and high-visibility gear are swarming over a skeleton of steel that stretches for miles. Welders send showers of golden sparks into the air. Advanced autonomous cranes lift massive concrete pillars into place with absolute, terrifying precision. Do you truly understand what this means for the average human being? It means the dramatic, forceful return of real, tangible, highly skilled jobs to local domestic economies. We are witnessing the greatest renaissance in domestic industrial policy since the end of the Second World War. We are actively building state-of-the-art semiconductor fabrication plants in the blazing deserts of Arizona. We are establishing cutting-edge critical mineral refineries in allied nations across Africa and South America. For the first time in over a generation, the concepts of national security and working-class economic opportunity are perfectly, seamlessly aligned. We are not simply moving old factories across borders. We are constructing impenetrable fortresses of economic resilience. The geopolitics of scarcity has finally forced humanity to take absolute responsibility for its own survival. And in doing so, it is unleashing a capital expenditure boom, a capex supercycle, that is generating unimaginable wealth for the investors, the workers, and the visionaries who know exactly where to look. We are talking about concrete, steel, copper, uranium, and the heavy machinery required to physically rebuild the world. This is not a digital mirage. This is a physical revolution. John turns away from the monitor, walking slowly back toward the center of the studio. The ambient lighting in the room shifts seamlessly. The warm, industrial amber tones fade into a cooler, sleeker, futuristic blue, yet it retains a deeply human warmth. But the reshoring boom is only the physical manifestation of this silver lining. The true force of gravity, the ultimate unstoppable power pushing back against the chaos and inflation of 2026, is the silent, invisible metamorphosis happening inside the digital realm. I am talking about the exponential evolution of artificial intelligence. And let me be perfectly clear. I am not talking about the amusing novelty chatbots we played with on our phones a few years ago. I am talking about autonomous, agentic, industrial-grade AI. I am talking about a staggering multi-hundred billion-dollar infrastructure build-out happening this year alone. Massive, hyperscale data centers, next-generation nuclear power grids designed solely to feed the insatiable energy demands of artificial intelligence, specialized silicon chips that defy the laws of traditional physics, and advanced networking infrastructure that is weaving a new digital nervous system for the planet. This is not a speculative tech bubble. This is the equivalent of laying down the railroad tracks, the telegraph lines, and the electrical grid for the 21st century, all at exactly the same time. The real revolution isn't happening in the stock market casino. It's happening in the dirt, the concrete, and the silicon, and it is going to fundamentally change what it means to be a human being. The widespread, pervasive fear was always that AI would arrive to replace us. The dystopian narrative sold to us by science fiction was that the machines would hollow out the global workforce, strip us of our dignity, and leave the working class completely destitute. But here, in the reality of 2026, we are witnessing the exact opposite phenomenon. Artificial intelligence is actively democratizing the highest level skills known to man. It is taking the accumulated, complex knowledge of the entire human race and placing it directly at the fingertips of absolutely anyone with a cheap internet connection and the desire to learn. It is giving a small, independent business owner sitting in a coffee shop in Alberton the logistical and analytical firepower to directly compete with a bloated multinational corporation headquartered in London. It is allowing independent farmers to perfectly optimize their crop yields, water usage, and harvest timing, directly fighting back against the surging, punitive costs of diesel fuel and chemical fertilizers. John steps forward. A sleek, perfectly transparent digital blackboard materializes in the air between him and the camera. As he speaks, glowing white mathematical formulas begin to write themselves in perfect, elegant script, hovering in the three-dimensional space. To truly, deeply understand why this technological renaissance is the ultimate silver lining for your financial future, we have to look past the political rhetoric and examine the underlying, unyielding macroeconomic mathematics of our current reality. We have to understand exactly how technology functions as a weapon to actively assassinate the inflation that is crushing the middle class. In classical 20th century economics, we measured the total output of our entire economy using a very rigid framework that accounted for technology, physical capital, and human labor. But in 2026, those old academic models are completely obsolete. They are blind to what is actually happening. We must introduce a new, augmented paradigm that accurately factors in the exponential, compounding impact of autonomous AI. Look at the augmented production function governing our world today. Y sub t equals open parenthesis a sub t, z sub t to the power of gamma, close parenthesis, k sub t to the power of alpha, L sub t to the power of 1 minus alpha. I want you to look closely at this equation. Y sub t represents the total economic output of our society, the wealth we generate. A sub t is our traditional total factor productivity. K sub t is the physical capital, the factories, the machines, the concrete. And L sub t is human labor, you and me. But here is the secret. Here is the silver lining, represented by Z sub t to the power of gamma. Z sub t is the rapidly accelerating, compounding stock of AI capital, digital infrastructure, and accumulated machine intelligence. The variable gamma represents the elasticity of output relative to this new alien intelligence. What this formula mathematically proves is a beautiful, undeniable truth. Even as our physical capital, K sub t, is heavily stressed and destroyed by global conflict, and even as human labor, L sub t, is violently squeezed by the rising cost of living, the exponential, explosive growth of Z sub t acts as a massive, overwhelming multiplier. It is allowing humanity to produce significantly more value, more goods, and more solutions with a fraction of the physical inputs. The first equation slowly dissolves into digital dust. A second, equally elegant equation begins to draw itself in the air. Now, how does this save you at the grocery store? Why is your current cost of living so painfully high? And exactly how does this mathematical reality fix it? Central banks use highly complex structural models to understand inflation dynamics. They use these models to explain why prices remain elevated even when consumer demand is crushed by high interest rates. We define this through a specific, vital structural equation. Pi sub t equals beta E sub t, open bracket, pi sub t plus 1, close bracket, plus kappa tilde y sub t plus u sub t. Let me break this down so you understand the game being played against you. Pi sub t is the actual inflation you feel, the horrifying price of a full tank of gas or a basket of groceries. E sub t of pi sub t plus 1 is the psychological expectation of future inflation. It is the creeping, paralyzing fear in your mind that prices will simply never stop rising. Tilde y sub t is the output gap, the difference between what our economy can produce and what it is actually producing. But the true villain in 2026, the monster hiding in the math, is U sub t. This is the exogenous cost push shock. That U sub t variable represents the Strait of Hormuz being choked off. It represents the brutal spike in global shipping costs. It represents the 11.4% spike in South African fuel prices that devastated small businesses this year. This equation clearly, undeniably shows us that central bankers cannot fix the U sub t shock simply by hiking interest rates. If the Federal Reserve or the SARB raises rates too high to kill demand, they will completely crush the underlying economy and cause a devastating depression. They are effectively powerless against supply-side shocks. And this is precisely where the artificial intelligence revolution steps in as the savior of the global economy. The technological multiplier we just examined in the previous equation actively, aggressively drives down the core fundamental costs of production, logistics, and resource management. AI is effectively counteracting and neutralizing the U sub T shock from the supply side. Technology is currently the only deflationary force on planet Earth powerful enough to save us from the ravages of geopolitical inflation. It is the ultimate shield. The transparent blackboard fades away completely. John walks back to his chair and sits down heavily. He leans in extremely close to the camera. The intense, intellectual aura softens into something deeply personal, raw, and profoundly human. The music shifts dramatically. The driving, intense tempo slows, replaced by a deeply emotional, resonant, and soaring string arrangement that evokes a profound sense of hope and human endurance. Mathematics, formulas, and economic theories are the skeleton of the world, but human beings are the soul. I want you to take a step back and think about the vast, sprawling history of our species. Every single time humanity has faced an existential bottleneck, every time we have stared into the abyss of starvation, war, or economic collapse, we have innovated our way out of it. We did not leave the Stone Age because we simply ran out of stones. We left the Stone Age because the brilliant, unyielding human mind invented bronze. Right now, in 2026, we are painfully, violently leaving the age of fragile, fossil fuel-dependent hyperglobalization. We are walking through the fire to enter an age of sovereign resilience, abundant energy, and artificial intelligence. I want to tell you about the real people living through this transition. I recently spent an hour on the phone with a subscriber from Ohio. Let's call him Marcus. Marcus is 48 years old. He is a father of 3. 5 years ago, Marcus lost his job as a mid-level manager at a traditional legacy auto parts manufacturer that shut down its American operations to move to Southeast Asia. He was utterly devastated. He lost his pension, his identity, and his confidence. He told me he felt entirely left behind by a world that was moving much too fast for him to comprehend. But in late 2024, Marcus made a choice. Instead of surrendering to despair, he started utilizing basic, cheap AI-assisted learning tools to teach himself advanced, automated computer-aided design and robotic fleet management. Today, in May of 2026, Marcus is not standing on a dying assembly line. He is the lead systems director managing a fleet of 150 autonomous, AI-driven industrial robots at a massive, newly built, heavily capitalized aerospace facility just 20 miles from his front door. He is making more than double his previous peak salary, his job is physically safe, and he is helping build the next generation of domestic aviation. Consider Elena, a fiercely intelligent woman operating right here in Gauteng. She runs a mid-sized commercial logistics and trucking company. When fuel prices violently skyrocketed earlier this year due to the geopolitical shocks we discussed, every traditional financial model and every banking advisor told her she would be completely bankrupt within 6 months. The math simply did not work. But Elena refused to accept defeat. She integrated a highly advanced predictive AI logistics model into her entire fleet. This system didn't just map routes, it analyzed real-time weather patterns, predicted exact traffic light cycles in major metropolitan areas, and optimized the engine load of every single truck second by second. She reduced her aggregate fuel consumption by a staggering 18%. She didn't just survive the vicious interest rate hikes, she bought out 2 of her failing competitors and expanded her empire. And then there is David, sitting in London, a traditional financial analyst who spent 20 years building Excel models that suddenly became obsolete overnight when AI agents learned to do his job in 3 seconds. He faced the abyss of irrelevance. Instead of fighting the technology, he mastered it. He pivoted his entire career to managing AI risk portfolios and ethical compliance models for massive institutional funds. He didn't lose his job to AI. He lost his old job so he could step into a vastly superior, higher-paying role that didn't even exist 3 years ago. Extreme close-up on John's face. The lighting is focused purely on his eyes, which convey an absolute, unshakable, and unwavering certainty. These are not isolated anomalies. These are not lucky lottery winners. These people are the vanguard of the brand new economy. This is the silver lining made flesh. The agonizing pain you feel in the economy right now, the stress that keeps you awake at 3 a.m., is simply the brutal friction of transition. The old world is dying, and it is thrashing violently, breaking things as it goes down. But the new world is being built, quietly, systematically, and brilliantly, by people who absolutely refuse to give up. So, the ultimate question remains: how do you, watching this right now, position yourself in a world that feels like it is constantly on fire, but is secretly forging a new golden age in the background? First, you must ruthlessly, mercilessly kill the noise. You must turn off the sensationalist media conglomerates that actively profit from your anxiety and your paralysis. They are selling you the pain of the supply shock because fear generates clicks. They are completely blinding you to the explosive, compounding growth of the technological renaissance. If you consume their panic, you will become paralyzed. Second, you must completely abandon the obsolete investment strategies of the past. Passive investing in broad, bloated, debt-ridden indices worked beautifully in an anomalous era of cheap money, zero interest rates, and unprecedented world peace. That era is over. In 2026, we have entered the era of the active, hyper-vigilant manager. We are in an era of extreme differentiation. You need to actively identify the builders. Look for the massive capital flows. Look at the companies laying the heavy physical infrastructure for artificial intelligence. Look at the hard commodities that are absolutely essential for the global energy transition and national defense. The structural copper deficit, the absolute necessity of uranium for baseload nuclear power, the rare earth elements required for advanced robotics. Look at the specific sovereign regions and emerging markets that are actively courting this new industrial renaissance with favorable regulations and cheap, abundant energy. But most importantly, far beyond any stock, bond, or commodity, you must relentlessly invest in yourself. You must adopt the mindset of the sovereign individual. You are the ultimate, most valuable asset class in existence. In a world where digital machines can process complex data a billion times faster than the human brain, the economic premium on raw human judgment, deep human empathy, and creative human adaptability has never been higher in the history of our species. Artificial intelligence is not your competitor. It is an incredibly powerful intellectual exoskeleton for your mind. Put it on. Learn exactly how to command it. Elevate your personal output to levels you previously thought were impossible. The music swells to a massive, triumphant, and deeply moving crescendo of strings, heavy brass, and deep percussion. It feels exactly like watching a brilliant sunrise after a terrifying, seemingly endless night. We are living through a massive historical crucible, and crucibles are designed by the universe to do one specific thing. They burn away the rot, the inefficiency, and the impurities, and they leave behind only that which is truly unbreakable. The global economy is violently shedding its old skin and finding its new footing. The magnificent, resilient infrastructure of tomorrow is literally being poured in concrete, wired in copper, and coated in silicon today. Do not let the terrifying headlines convince you that the future is lost. Do not surrender to the cynicism of the dying system. The future is not lost. It is being won, right here, right now, by those who have the immense courage to look past the thick, choking smoke of the present and clearly see the magnificent silver lining of tomorrow. The camera slowly pulls back. The chaotic financial data on the screens behind John has completely transformed into a steady, rhythmic, upward trending pulse of light. John offers a genuine, deeply reassuring, and powerful smile. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. Your focused attention, your intellect, and your willingness to dig far deeper than the superficial mainstream narrative is exactly what makes this community the most powerful and intelligent force on YouTube. If this video opened your eyes today, if it shifted your perspective, and if it gave you a concrete, actionable blueprint for how to aggressively navigate the complexities of 2026, please hit the like button. I am asking you to share this specific video with your family, your close friends, and anyone in your life who feels overwhelmed, terrified, or paralyzed by the current state of the world. They desperately need to hear this message. They need to know about the silver lining, and they need to know that there is a way forward. Remember to subscribe to Aurex, because we are just getting started on this journey together. I will be right here every single week, bringing you the unvarnished real information, the hard market updates, and the absolute truth that you will not find anywhere else. Stay incredibly strong, stay fiercely resilient, protect your capital with everything you have, protect your mind from the fear, and never ever forget that the sheer human power to adapt is the single greatest asset you will ever possess. I love you all. I will see you in the next video.